Welcome to our video lesson on converting customary units. This will be a little bit of a review based off of the work we did in our mini books earlier in the year, so hopefully it'll look familiar to you. We are going to be converting between different units of measurement. There are units of length, weight, and capacity, which is kind of like volume, that we'll be talking about. The first type of question you'll have is a question like number 1. How many quarts are in 5 gallons? In order to approach this problem, we need to first see that the two units we're talking about are quarts and gallons. So we need to find on our capacity chart how many quarts are in a gallon. Now if I look on our chart, I see here where we have the quarts and gallons. So I know that there are 4 quarts in every gallon. So I'm going to write that as a rate over here. So 4 quarts in 1 gallon. Now I have 5 gallons, not 1 gallon, so I'm going to write my second rate over here, and instead of writing 1 gallon, I'm going to write 5 gallons. To go from 1 to 5, because 1 is smaller than 5, I'm going to be multiplying, and I'm going to multiply by 5. So I'll do the same thing with my numerator. 4 times 5 is 20 quarts. So that means that there are 20 quarts in 5 gallons. Let's look at the next one. The next one isn't a measure of volume or capacity, it's a measure of weight. We're looking at pounds and tons. If I look on my table, I see that there are 2,000 pounds in 1 ton, so that's the rate that I'm going to start with. 2,000 pounds in 1 ton. Now I'm not looking at 1 ton, instead I'm looking at 3 tons. So I need to go from 1 ton to 3 tons. I'm going from a smaller measure to a bigger measure, so I'm going to multiply. 1 times 3 gives me the 3. So I'm going to multiply 2,000 times 3. And 2,000 times 3 would be 6,000. So I have 6,000 pounds. That's the first type of problem, where you're going from a smaller unit to a bigger unit. Okay, let's look at the second type you're going to be given. It says you need 8 feet of fabric to make a costume. How many yards of fabric should you buy? So I'm going to look, my units I'm looking at are feet and yards. If you look on your table, you can see that there are 3 feet in 1 yard. Now in this situation, I'm not talking about 3 feet though, I'm talking about 8 feet. So instead of having 3 feet here, I'm going to write 8 feet. Now I need to figure out how many yards there are in 8 feet. To go from 3 to 8, in order to figure out what to multiply 3 by to make it 8, I need to divide 8 by 3. How many times can 3 go into 8? 3 can go into 8 twice, and 2 times 3 is 6. 8 minus 6 is 2. We're going to stop there, and we're going to write our answer as a fraction. This as a fraction gives me 2 wholes and 2/3 of a yard. Remember, the number on top becomes your whole number because that's the number of whole times. 3 can go into 8. The number down here at the bottom, your remainder, becomes your numerator on the top, and your denominator will be whatever your divisor is. So that means that we would need 2 and 2/3 of a yard of fabric. Okay, let's look at the next one. You need 5 cups of milk, so we're looking at cups, to make hot chocolate. How many quarts of milk should you buy? So we're looking at the relationship between cups and quarts. And if you look on your table, you'll see that there are 4 cups in 1 quart. But we're not talking about 4 cups, we're actually talking about 5 cups. So how can I go from 4 to 5 cups? Well, again, I'm going to divide to figure out what I need to multiply it by. So I'm going to divide 5 by 4. How many times can 4 go into 5? 4 goes in once, and 1 times 4 is 4. 5 minus 4 gives me a remainder of 1. To write this as a fraction, I'm going to use colors to help you see. The 1 becomes my whole number here. The denominator will be my dividend, which is the 4. And my numerator, the number left over, becomes, my remainder becomes my numerator, which is the 1. So that means that there are 1 1/4 quarts in 5 cups of milk. In this type of problem, there's no wording. We just need to convert from inches to feet. So again, we're going to start with our original rate of how many inches are there in 1 foot. And if you look on your table, you can see that there are 12 inches in 1 foot. So now instead of we're not looking at 12 inches, we're looking at 45 inches. So to get from 12 to 45, we need to figure out what to multiply by. So we're going to divide 45 divided by 12. 12 goes into 45 3 times, and 3 times 12 is 36. 5 minus 6 I can't do, so I borrow from the 4, it becomes a 3. And I have 15 minus 6, that's 9. So I'm going to write this as a fraction. What this means is we have 12 times 3 and 9 twelfths. So 3 and 9 twelfths, that can be simplified. I can divide both the 9 and the 12. Their greatest common factor is 3. So I would have 3 and 3/4. If we go back here, to get from 12 inches to 45 inches, we multiply by 3 and 3/4. So we're going to do the same thing with our 1 down here, 3 and 3/4. And 1 times 3 and 3/4 is going to give us 3 and 3/4 of a foot. That's why our quotient, or the answer from our division problem, is the answer we put down here. Okay, let's do another one. We have tons and pounds. If you look on your table, you can see that there's 2,000 pounds in 1 ton. Now, I have 2 and 3/4 of a ton. To go from 1 to 2 and 3/4, I multiply by 2 and 3/4. So what that means is I'm going to have to multiply my numerator times 2 and 3/4. So I need to do 2,000 times 2 and 3/4. Well, my first step, I take my 2,000 and I'm going to put it as a fraction with a numerator of 1, because any whole number can be written as a fraction with a denominator of 1. The next thing I'm going to do is I need to convert my mixed number into an improper fraction. To convert 2 and 3/4 into an improper fraction, you can remember Texas, the short form TX, it's 2 times 4 plus 3. So 2 times 4 is 8, plus 3 gives me 11/4. I've just moved that up so I have some more space. Now to multiply fractions, I multiply my numerators and then I multiply my denominators. So I'm going to multiply 2,000 times 11. 1 times 0 is 0, 1 times 0 is 0, 1 times 0 is 0, and 1 times 2 is 2. I add my ghost 0. 1 times 0 is 0, 1 times 0 is 0, 1 times 0 is 0, and 1 times 2 is 2. And I add them together, 0, 0, 0, 2, 2. So that means that my numerator is going to be 22,000 over 1 times 4 is 4. So now I need to simplify this, and I do that by dividing 22,000 by 4, which I'll do over here. Four can't go into 2, but 4 can go into 22. It goes in 5 times, and 5 times 4 is 20. 22 minus 2, minus 22 minus 20 is 2. I bring down that 0. How many times can 4 go into 20? 5 times. 5 times 4 is 20. 20 minus 20 gives me 0. Bring down that 0. How many times can 4 go into 0? 0 times. And 0 times 4 is 0. 0 minus 0 gives me a 0. I bring down my last 0. How many times can 4 go into 0? 0 times. 0 times 4 will be 0. And 0 minus 0 will again give me 0. So what that means, because we got a 0 as a remainder, it means my answer is actually a whole number, 5,500. So that means that in 2 3/4 of a ton, there is 5,500 pounds. Okay, team, it's time for you to do some practice. I've put the questions right here in the video. These are the questions from our textbook from page 294. You're going to do all the ones highlighted in yellow. So it's numbers 10 through 12, 14, 17, 19, 20, and 26. Please do those in your notebook. That's all for now. If you need any help, please let me know. I'll talk to you later.